distance bicycling, and they have bicycled across the U.S. and internationally. And I remember him telling me about one package they put together that had a trailing van with technicians and supplies to deal with any breakdowns en route. Me, I'd have been happy in a two-seat convertible, top down and the wind blowing through my hair. After Macon, Mercer, he attended the Walter F. George School of Law. Also in Macon, was hired by Attorney General Mike Bowers as an Assistant Attorney General for the state of Georgia. He served there for 5 years before joining Swift Curry as a partner, where he had a 40-year career handling a number of cases from healthcare law, death on the high seas, and general litigation. He met his future wife, Cindy, while at Mercer. As I also met my future wife at Mercer. He has two sons, Zach, who is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. Christian is married to Leah, and they have one granddaughter, Georgia Ray, who is a bright light in a grandpa's eyes. And last week, he was privileged to attend Grandparents' Day with Georgia Ray. He is now retired, living in Buckhead, and is a member of the Peachtree Presbyterian Church. So without further ado, it's a great honor for me to go sit down and to welcome Steve to the podium here. Let's see if I can do this. I think I did. How about that?
Okay, can y'all hear? Good morning.
Good. Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Bill, for the introduction. Only slightly fictionalized. We go back a long ways. It's been great to get reacquainted with your college buddy 50 years later. Been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm here because 4.5 years ago, I woke up in Northside Hospital and there was a guy sitting right there I'd never seen before. He had a white coat on and he said, "I'm Jim Robinson. I'm a brain neurosurgeon. You have a mass on your brain. Would you like for me to take it off?" I looked at him and said, "Well, this is new to me. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. And I just met you. What would you do?" And he said, "Heck yes." Long story short, he did. So a lot of people have called me through the years and said, "You act like I have a hole in your head." Well, I have a hole in my head. It's right over here. I've got pictures of it. And Cindy and I, married 50 years this year. suffered through COVID, just like all of y'all, and we're basically under self-imposed house confinement for good part of COVID, initial COVID. And we deferred birthdays, anniversaries, etc. We'll do them some other time. Well, it got about to the fall and COVID was still going on. And I said, Cindy, what would you like to do for your birthday? And I figured she would say nothing or something along the lines. She said, I want to go for a bike ride. Okay. A bike ride. Well, we had done a lot of bike riding by then. We both had run marathons and tennis and all that. But as we got older, the joints, you guys, last a lot longer if you don't hit the ground like that. Moving at your own speed with 27 gears to help you out is the way to go. So we have this picture.
Can't get it up, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, it's a picture of my biking group. Some Covenant brothers and sisters, and we started off doing Italy, and we've done most of Europe, New Zealand, but we did Oregon and San Juan Islands off Seattle. That's where I became a Catholic. One of the guys, Dr. Dan Marshburn, was born into a family of Presbyterians, and then his wife converted him. And everywhere he goes, he's got the Word Among Us, the daily devotional of the Catholic faith. And every morning before breakfast, we'd do that. And it brought a lot of joy. Then in the afternoon, since we were in Willamette Valley, Oregon, which is where the Pinot Noir comes from, we decided we'd sample all the wine. And it was a good combination. And anyway, when I was arranging her birthday party, I got with my two buddies, Dr. Marshburn, and who came in handy, she'll find out, and Chad, who is a, what do you call him, financial planner. And I said, will you join us up there? I'll pay for everything. And I did, basically to control exposure to other people's COVID. I didn't want to get up there and then be coughed on and sneezed on by strangers in the dining room. So all the meals were outside. And that's where we were, outside. Hotel Domestique outside of Greenville, South Carolina, is where the U.S. Postal Team trained. Lance Armstrong routinely goes there, and he was there when we were there. He's like a motorcycle, though. He really is. We got up there. On the way, we played some golf. I shot a little bit better than usual, which is not good. But that comes in later as well, as we approach getting told by the doctor that I had a brain tumor. We get up there, and the biking is on mountain roads. They're wet, unfamiliar, curvy. And I didn't know I had a brain tumor, and I didn't seem that way either. If you're going 20, 30 miles an hour on a bike, and there are potholes and there are other bikers and cars and everything, you would think that I'd end up in the trees. But I had no real symptoms going into it. I mean, I didn't talk like a madman or have visual disturbances or that type of thing. I seemed relatively normal, other than I was tired. I got some, well, you're having another birthday, maybe it's just another year. And that's still an issue I have post-surgery. But anyway, we got up there and it went as planned. Everybody had a good time. We managed to bike and have fun. It's a lovely hotel. If you can't afford to go to Europe, go to Hotel Domestique. It's built in a vineyard, big vineyard, and it's European architecture, colors, fabrics, and all that. Your wives would love it. It's a lovely place. They also happen to have Tour de France bicycles out front that you can get on and ride if you want. I'd wear body armor if you did that. They also have complimentary BMWs, being near the BMW plant up there. And that worked out well. So we did the dinky little things. And then on the last day, we did the ride to Saluda, which is a small little town like Highlands. Didn't get quite as much money as Highlands, but similar program, which is Lance Armstrong's favorite run. Like a slope like this, and then it gets like this, and which will wear you out. And that wasn't so bad, although Lance was out of sight, and with he and his group on motorcycles up a mile ahead of us, maybe. But coming down, you can get up easily to 50 or 60 miles an hour on a bike going down without pedaling much. And if you happen to have a brain tumor, that's not something you look forward to. I still didn't know I had anything. And that sort of convinced me that I didn't. At any rate, I got back in, and my other friend coughed and sneezed all over me, just like all the COVID people were doing at that time. And so my doctor friend said, because I started to have some symptoms, you need to be checked out. Don't go to a drugstore, because all they're going to do is sell you some Chlorcidin D or some cough drops, and that'll be the end of it. You need to go someplace that has medical people. So Northside Hospital got me, and I pulled into the emergency room. Rather, my wife did. She drove me. And they wouldn't even let people like me in the hospital. There's a little grassy area there, a little yard. And people that look like the Walking Dead were walking around in that area, coughing, sneezing, more importantly, giving each other medical advice about what to do about the condition, what they had done and how it had worked, and this, that, and the other. Nobody knew anybody. I sort of thought some of them might have been doctors, spreading the truth, but not so. Anyway, I got my test. Little guy, barely was tall enough to look outside of the window. And went back out with the other victims and talked to them about the latest cure that we hadn't heard about on the news, that Fossey didn't tell us about. And got impatient, so I went back up to the window and talked to the little guy. And I said, Cotter, how did I do? And he said, oh, you're negative. I turned and was going to run home to my house. I wanted to get out of that place and all those people. But he said, at your age, we probably need to keep you to do one more test. And I said to myself, that means you need to make some money off me. And you're not going to give me a hall pass until I pay some money for something. So I stayed, and that's why I woke up the next morning talking to Jim Robinson. So the first part of God's grace was to give me two covenant friends, one, a physician that knew something about what was going on, and two, the other guy that had the poor judgment to catch something and give me the symptoms. No, I didn't have COVID, but that got me to there on my journey. And then after I woke up and started to talk to this stranger, Dr. Robinson, finally I said, yes, I'll do it. And he said, well, I've got my calendar completely full, but there is one lingering lady who is coming down with COVID, and I think probably she will be canceling here pretty soon. I can't operate on her. Do you want her spot? And I said, yes, I sure do. Now, this is a doctor I'd never met before, never heard of. And he's sitting there telling me what my situation was, proposing to take my head off in a few days due to this woman who I'd never met. And I hope she turned out fine. And learned that Dr. Robinson's internist was my internist. And additionally, that Dr. Robinson had performed two major back operations on my doctor. So if I'd had 5 or 10 years to survey who would I go to have a brain tumor taken out, I would have ended up with this guy anyway. But there he was. God put him in front of me to talk sense to me, into me. And so I had the tumor removed 4.5 years ago. And I've gone through the drill, radiation, chemotherapy, not a lot of fun. Did that here in town. I guess I passed the first litmus test on that. And then they offered to refer me to Duke Tumor Institute, which specializes in this kind of thing and has a national reputation and draw. And certainly if you're from the South, that's where you go. You can go to New York City or LA, but I decided Durham, North Carolina would be just fine. And what fine people they are. That's a year-long program where you continue with the Temodar, which is the chemo, and also Kepra, which is a seizure preventer. And then I'd go up to Duke every month for an MRI to compare with the one they took at Northside Hospital and make sure nothing was growing. And so I spent a lot of time on the road going up there, but it was well worth it. If you have anybody who was in my situation back then, I would definitely get Duke plugged in. They're fine people, obviously fine doctors. The guy who started it way back when, Henry Seth Friedman, has over 500 medical journal articles on preventing the reoccurrence of what I had. So I think he knows what he's talking about. And they're nice enough people. He called me up one night, the head guy, and just wanted to talk. And he said, I'm putting myself on your team. Maybe because he thought maybe I'd live, but really nice guy. They all are good. Matter of fact, the first time I went up there for the full works, the lead doctor and the team came over as I was leaving and said, Mr. Cotter, have we met your expectations? And I paused and I said, as a matter of fact, I've really enjoyed myself. And then being a lawyer, I quickly shut up, and thinking he'd put me in a straitjacket at that point. I'm at a cancerous brain tumor institute, and I'm enjoying myself. But they were that nice. Not only are they competent, but they're just really nice people. They have a good spirit about them. I'm not sure my doctor was a Christian. I need to ask him next time I go up there. He was from Iraq, which is why I say I doubt that he is, but he was trained in London. He may have been. Anyway, I got through all that, and you go back on a reoccurring basis, like every month. And depending on how you do, they adjust your medication. And in my situation, they took me off all medication. And they also either shorten or lengthen the comeback time. And it got shorter and shorter and shorter coming back. This last time, I think it was 6 months rather than a month. And they did a great job. So here I am. By the grace of God.
Okay.
It's a little bit, it's devoted. Put them on.
Okay.
Your chair, you get way on.
Yeah. Have seats. Yeah.
I've learned a lot of medicine through the years. First thing I learned was your ethnicity matters. I was wondering why every time you go into a medical doctor, they want the whole personal background. Well, in my case, they were very excited when my blood test came back and it established that I had Irish genes. Well, those genes apparently really get along well with the chemotherapy, Temidor. They take the medication and something about methylizing. At any rate, the chemotherapy was more efficacious on me because of my Irish genes. I'm going through these details because so many of the things that matter, I didn't have any role in, starting with my ethnicity. God knew who I was and where I was going. And he equipped me to start with the right kind of genes. If I had been German or Australian or something else, I may not be here. It turned out well. So I did the Duke thing for a year. Very glad I did. And if I had to do it over again, I'd definitely go there again. So as you would, I started asking questions like, since I'm supposed to be dead, what makes me different? And the docs hemmed and hawed. And finally, I got out of them 4 things from a medical standpoint. Brilliant early surgery. That's Dr. Robinson, my doctor's doctor. And I had nothing to do with that. And couldn't have gotten a better surgeon. As a matter of fact, I learned that the neurosurgeons informally peer review their work. Like every week or so, they'll turn in their MRIs on a patient, and then they will informally vote to see who did the best cut that week. I won my week. I hope Robinson got a bonus for that. But that was good. Where I live now, there are a lot of docs. And one of them, a neurologist at Piedmont, not involved in my care, said, I understand you had it. And he said, you know, you had 16 months to live. And I said, no, I didn't. It's been over 4 years now. His response was one word: miracle. And I said, I agree. And it was. God's grace all along the way. I can see it clearly in hindsight, but wasn't seeing it in foresight. It was a pretty grim journey to be on. But faith is the promise of things hoped for, conviction of things not seen. And that sort of carried me through, because he looked out for me big time. He still is. I'm going to be going back up to Duke, my favorite place, and see all those guys, and I'll cross-examine the Iraqi about his faith. I think I know his answer, but I didn't want to get too personal, just because, you know, they were putting their hands in my head. But after you go through something like that, they put you through all kinds of testing. Maybe Joe Biden could have used some of them. The first was a neuropsych test where they say things like John Brown, Chicago, Maiden Street, 1862. And then the next day they'll say, well, what about John Brown? I said, well, I don't know about John Brown. They didn't tell you that you're supposed to remember those details. And then a week later, or the next time you came in for your session, they would say, what street? Oh. Those kind of silly things. But I guess it does test your cognitive ability. And I passed that. As a matter of fact, I practiced law for 6 months after the operation. I had obviously a lawyer at my firm work it with me hand in hand on this stuff, but it was, I did the thinking part of it, and that was something very important. According to the docs, they said my level of activity mentally and physically was an important part of my outcome. So, in addition to my Bible study at Peachtree Pres, I kept up with law stuff, and as Bill mentioned, my older son is in the Marines, and he was in the War College. And so I would get his reading list, and he'd occasionally send me one of his books. The first one was Kissinger, which was that thick. The old dad, sitting there going through a 600-page autobiography. That'll get your brain working. He's a smart guy. And I continued biking. We biked Vermont during my treatment and recovery. Indeed, about a year ago, we biked Cuba, which was a great trip. Tough, but eye-opening. I think you have a group going there. I think I heard at one of these meetings that I went with our church, the Presbyterian Church. But you really do better to go with the Catholics, because the Catholic Church has gotten over there and done the right thing. They bought up all the places that they could buy up that you want to go to. And they don't charge admission for any of it. And they own all the hotels you want to stay in. And they're good innkeepers. When we checked into our first in Jerusalem, bottle of white wine came with the room, and which we Presbyterians gladly accepted. In Cuba, it's not a bottle of wine, it's a bottle of rum. We put it in a little mini fridge, and in between the two bottles of drinking water. And our guide was so excited to tell us that if you drink it, they'll bring another one the next day. I got a feeling that the guide got a lot of bottles of rum out of that. But anyway, I went through the neuro testing, and they certified me cognitively intact. My wife doesn't agree, but I think I am. And then they put me in neuro PT, and looking around the room, all of y'all could benefit from that. It's basically for balance and stability. And as we age, especially if you have a hole in your head, that's an issue. And there are 3 gals at Synapse in Sandy Springs, all PhD neuro physical therapists. They are excellent, that teach you, since part of my brain on the right that was affected was basically the part of my brain that deals with balance and such. I needed to relearn balance, walking and that kind of thing. Of late, the last 2 weeks, I've started to walk with a cane because I have some residual. But you go through that testing, and I first flunked the test. You can't get the therapy from Medicare unless you flunk the test. So I flunked the test. Not for that reason, but if you don't flunk it, why would they pay for 2 months of therapy? So I passed that test. And then I, on my own, decided somebody needed to check me out driving. If I had a serious brain injury, and I did, not injury, operation, am I safe to drive? So I got the retired chief training officer for the Georgia State Patrol to evaluate my driving, get in the car with me and tell me where to go and that kind of thing. It was down around LaGrange and Callaway. And when we got done, he said, "I'd let you be my driver." I said, "Well, tell my wife." And she's still not convinced, which means that she drives, and that's scary. I've got a Tesla, which she drives 93, 98 miles an hour on expressway. It scares me to death. But the car's so smooth, it doesn't feel like that. And so I got that taken care of, first the cognitive testing, then the physical therapy to make sure I could physically do what I needed to do. And then they test you for your vision. You have an injury on the right or an operation on the right side of your brain. The symptoms are going to be on your left. You're going to be dragging your left foot. You're going to have coordination issues on the left. You're going to have vision issues on the left, not the right. And so I got through all of that. And now we're getting to the good part. Having gone through all this stuff, the inconvenience, not so much the pain, because most of the time you're knocked out, so you're not feeling anything. But the way I feel about people now has changed here. I was the big, tough defense lawyer who deny, defend, delay, no money for you, no matter what you do, or who you are. I was not the widow and orphan's friend. And having gone through this, I have empathy for everybody out there. I could be an excellent plaintiff's lawyer if I ever wanted to practice law again, because I feel their pain. And I found so many fine people along the way. God has put them in my path that need somebody to slow down and pause and listen to them a little bit and help them if you can. Whether it be a technician in the doctor's office or somebody just walking through your neighborhood. I take a lot more time than I used to with folks, and I'm glad I do. I probably couldn't join my firm now because of my attitude, but that's okay. Because God has, as you can tell from my remarks, watched out for me from the date of birth, even what family he put me in, and put all these great people along the way to help me, not just technically as a doctor or a nurse, but as a person, which was my reference for the comment I mistakenly made. I've really enjoyed myself here. I mean, the nurses and doctors, and especially I don't know what you call the up and coming doctors, interns, residents, guess it was interns, that we saw along the way, were delightful people. And they took time with me. And I've learned to take time with other people. And maybe before I was too busy trying to get to the bank. That wasn't that important to me. It's very important to me now. People are. And I almost hope it continues. Well, I've got another session at Duke to go. I forget when it is. But my wife says, well, why don't they just say you don't have any cancer and let you loose? And I said, well, I'm not sure I want that to happen. I sort of like them and would like to stay in touch. Well, we certainly are. And it's been a lot of fun since the doctor's been here to lock me up. It's also sort of nice to walk through my senior center and have that same doc from Piedmont just look at me across the lobby and say, miracle. It's like my name is Miracle. I need to get to know him better and will. But that is my 4.5 year journey by the grace of God.
Let me add one thing real quickly, that we can start off with is a brief reference. The diagnosis with glioblastoma is you're given 16 months to live. That's the norm. And two things. And roughly 9% make it 5 years. It's a very aggressive, deadly cancer. And when they say miracle, they mean not being people. That's why it's an absolute pleasure to be able to share his story with us today, because very few make it to this point. And I'm doing.
And if you're starting on this journey or a similar one, you need to have faith. You don't know what your journey for the rest of your life is going to be. He does. And in hindsight, you can sort of figure out why you went through some of the trials and suffering that you did. It was part of his plan. Well, hang in there, because it's not as grim as what the internet says. Doesn't have to be. And wasn't for me.
Do you have time for some questions, Steve?
Yes, if you have any questions, I would love to respond.
Talk about your wife.
Cindy is a lovely woman. We've been married 50 years now. She is now my driver. She drove me over here. She does anything she wants. And I follow along. I do a lot more yes ma'ams than I used to. That's been part of it. I'm not sure she sees the change as much as other people have in me. But we met, as Bill mentioned, in college. Therefore, I had to go to law school at that school. Well, I'm glad I did in hindsight. We raised 2 fine men. The older lieutenant colonel in the Marines, I nicknamed as Pride, because he has done everything a parent would want a child to do along the way. He got into Wake Forest, graduated, doing very well. I wasn't in the service, but he decided if he was going in, and 9/11 made that up his mind on that. He was going in the Marines, and he's getting promoted to lieutenant colonel. That was quite a thrill. And then number 2 son, Joy is my nickname for him. He's a people person. He's down in Sarasota. He married into a 5th generation Sarasodian family. They have a big ranch with citrus and cows and snakes and alligators and all that. I was down there last week. It was a lot of fun. we basically spent our marriage raising them. And we've done a lot of things through the years. Did distance running. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon when my son was in Iraq, and he ran it over there at Camp Fallujah. I beat him by 5 minutes. So what if it was 30 degrees hotter over there? I thought I got a great picture of him running behind an MRAT, which is what they used when the Humvees kept getting blown up. These things are so big that you can put a bomb underneath them, but the bottom of them are like a V, and the force is directed out. Well, he's running through the desert at Camp Fallujah on this marathon with clouds of sand and dirt all over him. I guess that was some of the reason he was so slow. So my wife Cindy, decided, well, if Steve runs the marathon, I am. So she runs it the next year. By then, my son's home from Iraq, and he comes and cheers her on the whole way. She is very much of a mother to this day. Matter of fact, her principal activity is a Moms in Touch group that she religiously attended when our kids were in local schools, but now she's linked up with some other women, and every Thursday morning they get together for a couple hours and do that. So she is a real mom. She's not giving up that role easily. And she's got a t-shirt for the Marine Corps Marathon as well.
Did I understand it gone 50 years since the two of you had been in touch with each other?
Probably not quite that long, but
Okay, not quite. How'd you guys get back together?
We've been friends off and
Oh, okay.
getting together, we've been through the years. But over the last 3 years. Over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of lake therapy. I got a pontoon boat and got away on Lake Altoona, and it's very calm, peaceful lake during the week, and we sort of get lost in our thoughts, and then we enjoy our time together.
I assume your brothers and sisters at Peachtree Press wrapped you up pretty nicely over the last year or so.
the morning group, yes. I'm not as involved as I should be with the church. It's a big church. It's the biggest Presbyterian church in the United States. So it's hard to find your place, a comfortable place. Or at least I haven't. We joined because I'd given for my wife's birthday the previous year a trip to Israel to Cindy. And we went over there with Mark and Marnie Crumpler, who were associate pastors at Presbyterian. And you spend 2 weeks not just around, but living with your pastor, and you get to know one another pretty well. And that hooked us, and we therefore are part of that community, even though they got hijacked to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, going from the largest Presbyterian church in America all the way up there, which is an Amish country. Some familiar places, though, Nazareth and other Bible names of the various little cities that the Amish have up there. Good.
Any other questions for Steve? Steve, thank you for your time. Do you have anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Was there anything else you want to share with me?
No, but Don't try it just because I got through it.
Good advice.
Do try biking. When your knees wear out, you can bike.
Steve, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Mhm.
God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was an inspiring story. I'll say a closing prayer. Yes, bow your heads. Heavenly Father, as we come to the closing of our gathering today, thank you for the gift of fellowship and the opportunity to learn and worship together. Thank you so much for bringing Steve to us this morning. That was a wonderful story. Let him be an inspiration to us in terms of faith. His faith is one of the main things that got him through. Help us to learn from that, internalize that, and understand the importance of faith. And Lord, bring peace to those that are suffering, and nudge each of us to help in any way we can. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.